9th January, 1884. There. Anna, Mad Zeek, and I have made it through yet another day, and I must say the presence of my companions gives me peace of mind. We have obtained rather more civilized sleeping conditions than those in Mad Zeek's hovel, and although a hot bath and a real bed are certainly welcome, there was a definite comfort that came from staying in a place literally without doors, one that we have now lost. It is late evening now. Anna is in the bath, Mad Zeek is fast asleep, and I am writing here by lamplight, attempting to correlate and make sense of all the things I have heard and seen today. I need not relate the details of our morning with Mad Zeek. We slept in, breakfasted, and made ourselves better acquainted with our environment. We were not far from Anna's shop, 3 or so blocks by her reckoning. When we had finished lunch, provided again by Mad Zeek, he settled in, sitting cross-legged on his cushion pile with his hands on his knees. "So then," he said, "shall I tell my story first, or shall the two of you regale me?" I think I should prefer to hear from you first," I suggested. Anna supported my suggestion. "Splendid," said Mad Zeek, settling in. "I shall tell you what I know of the Red Door." This, as best I can recall, is his tale. It was towards the end of December, by his reckoning. Time, it seemed, was rather slippery in the hands of Mad Zeek. Sometime around Christmas he was out begging on Baker Street, hoping that the spirit of the season would be reflected in more generous donations. It was just after sunset, a light snow was falling, and he was on his way homeward with a satchel full of coins. He noted, down the end of a back alley, a curious red door, which he had never before marked. Intrigued, he made his way down the alley to better investigate the odd portal. When he had reached it, a terrible sense of foreboding overcame him. He trembled so violently that the coins in his satchel jangled like sleigh bells. He sensed, he said, a malevolent presence just on the other side of the door. The ground beneath his feet quaked, and he heard a monstrous sound as of a giant drawing air. He fled the place, and did not return for many days. Recently, however, he crept back to see if the door was still there. It was not. This was the moment when Jory the cabbie, a long-time friend of Mad Zeek's, came upon him. Mad Zeek told him of the troubling events, and Jory, a bright young lad, made the connection immediately with the Russian woman who had nearly collapsed on the bridge, and her stolid English friend in the horrible manse. Mad Zeek determined that, should the door be as dire a presence as he feared, Anna and I were in grave danger and must be seen to at once. Since then, Jory had been keeping a watchful eye for strange occurrences, and had seen, because of his keen eyes, the red door appearing several places around London. It was also due to his vigilance that he heard the screams at Mr. Brewer's, and was able to come to our aid. "So then," I said, when he had done, "the door has appeared all over London, not just at Anna's shop and in my home." "Your home?" Mad Zeek exclaimed. "Oh, no wonder you were driven into the streets." "Now see here, I'm no urchin," I objected. Anna put a hand on my arm, gentle but firm. "You must excuse Leslie," she said. "He is idiot Englishman and has no respect for anyone but other rich Englishmen." "I do beg your pardon!" I exclaimed, but Mad Zeek was laughing and waving a dismissive hand. "Yes, yes, my dear lady, I quite understand the penchant of the rich to undervalue the poor. It's only force of habit, and I'm well acquainted with it. Now I've told you my tale of woe, I'd like to hear yours in return." So we each told him of our encounters with the Red Door, and I somehow managed to deliver a strangled account of Mr. Brewer's demise. I could only say that an unspeakable fate had befallen him, unable to bring myself to describe the horror. Mad Zeek seemed to understand, however, as he did not ask for further detail. When we had each finished our tales, Mad Zeek sat in silence for a long time, staring into his small cook fire. "This is troubling," he said at last. "Troubling isn't quite the word I would ascribe to it," I responded darkly. He held up a hand for silence, and I obeyed. "It seems to me," he continued, "that neither of you ought to return to your homes until this matter comes to a close. Especially you, Mr. Fletcher. If what you say is true, and the Red Door's origin is in your basement, then your house will be the center of whatever horrors are to come. And I believe with a great deal of certainty that the worst is yet to come." "We must burn the door down," Anna insisted, vehement and sharp. "With fire we shall kill this evil thing." "I must admit," I said, "the idea is beginning to grow on me." "You said you had the key," Mad Zeek said. "May I see it?" I looked to Anna, who, after a moment of hesitation, pulled the key from around her neck and held it out for Mad Zeek to see. He peered at it closely, but did not reach for it, for which I found myself unaccountably grateful. "Yes," he confirmed. "That's the key, all right. It could fit no other door. No other door could require it." "My thoughts exactly," I said. "The question is what to do with it. We've heard what happened when Anna tried to throw it in the river. It's highly doubtful that we'll be able to get rid of it." "Perhaps if you should try, Mr. Fletcher," Mad Zeek suggested. Anna laughed. "You think, dear Leslie, he is of stronger will than I? No, alas, the Red Door knows him too well and over him has too much power." "Thank you," I sneered, "for your stellar recommendation of my constitution." "I'll try it. I have only encountered the door once, and so it may have less sway over my actions," Mad Zeek suggested. "It's worth a try," I admitted, but Anna was already shaking her head. "Ezekiel, I have for you only respect. But to us did you not say that upon meeting this Red Door, you were struck with a fear and madness? Not so has it been for me, though I have seen the Red Door at his worst. No, it must be I. I shall again go to London Bridge and throw key into dark water below. He will be buried there for all time, and the Red Door he will never be opened." "Do you think that's wise?" I asked, startled. She shook her head. "Wise? No. Yet what other thing we can do? I see no choices. The key must be buried, and the Red Door will never open. So." But you saw what it did to Mr. Brewer." "Yes, and that is why I am convinced Red Door must never open. I do not care for cost or danger. No one else the Red Door shall murder. I will not allow. And if I am not to burn down Door himself, then I will bury his key so deeply that no poor Englishman ever will find him again." "Perhaps it's best if we all go," Mad Zeek suggested. "The strength of 3 far outweighs the strength of 1. "That doesn't sound half bad," I agreed. Perhaps Jory should accompany us. He has a cab as well, which might stand us in good stead." "I will be happy if young Jory is again at my side, should the Red Door again strike out at me," Anna put in. "He has proven handy in such a situation." "It's decided, then," Mad Zeek said. "Shall we go now? I can think of no reason to hesitate." Although I could think of no real reason to wait, I must admit I was incredibly loath to attempt such a coup against the Red Door. Anna, however, was adamantly in support of the plan, and Mad Zeek was, indeed, almost unseemly in his enthusiasm to be underway. His expressions were large, his eyes alight, his motions imbued with vigor. He shooed Anna and myself outside his hovel as he gathered his few possessions. I stood and shivered, being bereft of my hat and coat, while Anna huddled inside her fox fur. The evening was clear and cold, the sun shining bleakly on the grey tenements of London. Mad Zeek soon emerged, clad in a thick coat that seemed to be made entirely of patches. He carried with him, and subsequently gave to me, a rather more threadbare, but rather more intact greatcoat, which I thankfully accepted. I was still without a hat, but the coat was sufficient to keep me from catching cold. We met with Jory the cab driver near Bryanston Square. As his hansom was a two-seater, I elected to sit out front with Jory while Anna and Mad Zeek occupied the interior. This gave me a singular opportunity to converse with the boy alone. The sun was setting, the lamps being lit, and soon a foggy darkness had descended upon the city. "Jory," I began, "I don't believe I got the chance to thank you for your timely appearance last night." "Oh, don't worry yourself about it, sir," he demurred. "Truth to tell, ever since I ran into the two of you, I've been hankering to get at this mystery door of yours. Been keeping an eye out for it." "Yes, so I heard." "And I've seen it, too," he continued. "All over London. Same door, all over everywhere. Don't matter the neighbourhood, nor time of day, nor night. It's downright spooky, isn't it?" All over London. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Oh, yes, sir. But I did hear something about it being your door, sir, at the outset." I swallowed, staring out at the dark city streets, waiting to catch a glimpse of the horrible portal. "I suppose it is. I found it first in my basement, at any rate. Perhaps it didn't originate there, but I've never looked and seen it not there." "Well, I'd say that's about as solid evidence as anyone could ask for. Also heard you happen to have found the key." "Yes, it was in my house as well. The attic. Alas, there was nothing accompanying it, no note, no letter of warning. Still, I doubt it should concern any of us, as we're about to throw it out." Said Jory. "So you're—" For a minute or so, we drove on in silence. The sound of muted voices could be heard from within the cab. From the timbre and exchange of the voices, I surmised that Anna and Mad Zeek were getting on famously. "Seems to me," Jory said at last, "the whole situation revolves around you, Mr. Fletcher." "I suppose," I replied. The tone of his voice was giving me a decidedly uncomfortable feeling, though I would say it's more the old house than myself. "Is it?" Jory inquired, and the sharpness of his inquiry, I must say, rubbed me entirely the wrong way. "Now, look here, young man," I admonished. "I rather dislike your tone. What exactly are you implying?" "Seems to me," he continued, in the same tone, "this trouble didn't start till you started poking round in places you had no business poking round in." "My own basement? I'd say I was well within my rights to go poking round in my own basement." "Do you now? And who gave you the right? Who gave you the right to go looking for keys and throwing 'em out? To go digging up secrets and shelling out panic, eh? Who gave you the right to go scaring the old damn city out of their trousers?" "As everyone seems to be wearing their trousers," I retorted, "I can't see how I've done any harm." But Jory was quite inconsolable on the point. He was working himself into a fervour, fairly frothing at the mouth. People fair panicking in the streets, trampling each other trying to get out, looting, killing, screaming, and suppose that door opens. What comes out of it? Some horrible thing, all claws and teeth and that horrible eye!" He dropped the reins and flung himself at me, his eyes wide and wild. "Give me that key!" he screamed. His hands closed round my throat and I kicked at him. The horses went absolutely mad and tore off down the road. His mad face filled my vision, contorted with frenzy. I scratched at his wide eyes, tried to throw him off, but he had the uncanny strength of a madman, and my vision soon began to go dark. The next I knew, there was a loud crash. The horses screamed, and we were falling, straight into the cold, murky waters of the Thames. The shock of hitting the frigid water knocked my breath out entirely. There was little enough of it after Jory's wild attack. He was still clutching at my throat, but the shock of the impact had loosened his grip. I fought for the surface, my lungs burning with the need for air, and managed to kick myself free of Jory and to the surface. My head breached the water, and I gasped in air. Jory likewise broke the surface next to me. No sooner had he drawn breath than he was after me again, and we were both plunged into the frigid water once more. All was darkness and muffled noises, and I fought for my life, there in that muted blackness. I fought my way free of Jory's grip, and once again made for the surface. When I had reached it, and looked around, I immediately thought of Anna and Mad Zeek, trapped inside the hansom when it plunged into the river. I was on the verge of diving back under in search for them when a voice called to me from the bank. "Leslie!" It was Anna. "Leslie, hurry!" I swam for her as quickly as I could, and soon reached the shore, shivering and exhausted. She helped to haul me out of the water, and we huddled together for warmth. "Jory, he went mad, absolutely mad!" "Leslie, Leslie, where Ezekiel is, did you see him?" I shook my head. "No. Did he make it out of the cab?" "I do not know. When we fall into water, I get out of cab as fast as I can, swim for shore. I do not stop to wonder about poor Ezekiel." I stood, still shivering. "I'm going in after him," I said, though I felt I might succumb to the cold should I venture back into the water. Anna, however, caught me by the hand and stayed my heroics. "No, Leslie, you will drown. Come, we must find somewhere warm." "The key!" I gasped. "Do you still have it?" I seized her by the shoulders. "Anna, do you still have the key?" With uncanny swiftness, she swept my hands from her shoulders. "No, Leslie, the key, he is gone. I do not keep him around my neck this journey, and so when the cab he falls into the water, so also does the key. He is deep in water now. Oh, Leslie, look!" She pointed, and I looked out into the water. 2 bodies had surfaced farther downstream and were drifting towards the bank. We ran towards them, managing to fish them out. It was Jory and Mad Zeek, both stone dead. "Oh, Bože moj! Bože moj!" Anna cried, falling to her knees. "Ezekiel, you must wake up!" She struck him across the face, hard. "Ezekiel!" "Anna, stop!" I clutched her wrist before she could strike the poor man again. "Let go of me, Leslie!" She shook me off and thumped Mad Zeek in the chest with all her might. The sound was that of a thick, damp drum being struck. To my extreme surprise, Mad Zeek twitched, coughed, and spat up nearly a pint of water. Alive again! He rolled onto his hands and knees, coughing and retching violently. Anna broke into sobs and embraced him. I moved to Jory, wary of his reawakening, should it happen, into madness. However, when I looked more closely, I could see that drowning had not been his end. In our struggle, it seemed, I had broken his neck. I sat heavily on the ground, shivering now with more than cold, wary of the madness that had seized him and horrified by the grave deed I had done. Eventually, Mad Zeek ceased his coughing and subsided, hoofing in great gasps of the sharp, cold air. His thin white hair was plastered to his skull, and his beard was bedraggled. "My God," he said, turning gleaming, bloodshot eyes to Anna. "You saved me." She nodded. "Yes, Ezekiel, I save you. In a world with so few friends, even one I cannot afford to lose." "Thank you," he effused, "and thank you again and again." "Come along," I said at last. "We'd best get somewhere warm before we catch our death of cold. The police station, and tell them what's happened." They agreed, and we began our shivering trek through darkness to the nearest station. Our waterlogged clothing was beginning to freeze. I don't know if it was this or hypothermia that made the cold seem to grow less intense as we walked. We made it to a nearby station in good time, drawn by the bright beacon of its lamp, and caused quite a stir upon our arrival. We told the officers present of the accident on the bridge, and they dispatched a pair of constables to investigate the scene and retrieve the body of Jory. We've been set up in quarters over the station, have been fed and given a chance to bathe, and will be sent on our way in the morning. I was told I was not culpable for the death of Jory, since it was an accident, and, indeed, self-defense, there's little chance of my even being tried for it. Still, it weighs heavy on my conscience, and I wonder at his sudden and unnatural onset of madness. Yet, these are concerns for the light of day. I shall now bathe and take myself to bed, for I am bruised, sore, and exhausted, and do not doubt that sleep shall come easily to me this night, though I am weary of dreaming.